Yeah.
Are you guys not gonna risk my goodies?
Oh, well, I know which one Earl's gonna take.
What would you
It won't be, it
Oh,
won't be a help.
I
Yeah,
just-
there
I-
you go.
Thank you.
That's one thing at a farm, there's always lots of food, isn't there, to share?
Pardon?
I said on a farm, there was always lots of food.
Even if you had to make a turnip sandwich.
Yeah. Oh, I've never heard of that.
I can remember my sister Beth going to go with those Harrison girls. I don't know whether you'd be related to them or not, but they had a sense of humor like you wouldn't believe. And Beth says, I was having lunch with him, and says, well, one turnip sandwich coming up. I don't think it was a turnip sandwich.
My name is Grace Callan. I was born and raised in Toronto.
I'm Shirley Fife. I was born on the 26th of May, 1930.
I'm Ken Harrison. I was born on May 24th, 1926.
And my name is Jim Hoskin. I'm Earl McCall. I was born November 28th, 1939.
I married Bill Callan in 1947.
I married Russell Fife, and he picked up the milk in this area from the time that I originally knew him.
I always said that the girl that I married was the best thing I ever did. She came to our farm. My mother had died the year before, and when she was 21 years old, she came and took on my father and my brother and myself, and never complained. I think I appreciated it and tried to make a good life for her. I think I did.
That's where I met Faye, right there.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, she says. Eileen, she says to her cousin Eileen McCall, who's that guy in the gray shirt? And she says, well, that's Jim Hoskin. He'll let me ask you to dance. She says, that's the guy I'm going to marry. What do you think she...
It was my girlfriend's brother that would take us out because we were fairly young when we went out there. And Eileen McCall said to me, I was watching you dance, and I said, he's a kind of a good dancer. And Eileen says, don't worry about it. He asks every girl in the place to dance. That's my version.
And in 1948, we came down to visit the Harry McCarroll family because Bill's aunt used to live on this lot, on the third line of Emily at that time. And he used to visit her every summer. And Bill used to work for the farmers around and got to know Harry McCarroll very well. So we came down for a visit at Easter 1948. Went home and got a letter from the McCarrolls to saying that Boyd Windham was looking for a hired man. So Bill says, what do you think? And I said, well, you have to do the work, not me, so let's go.
The McNeven family and the Fife family came from Scotland in the years somewhere between 1820 and 1824.
I've been on the same farm. I was born in the house across the road, but I've lived for 91 years where I live now. It's an old family farm that we've owned since 1846. The family has.
Story Hill Farm was a grant from the Crown. So that's 5 generations in that farm.
Yeah. There's a fellow, this Atkinson that they bought it from, it was a Crown grant for him.
Was it? Yeah.
But I still have the deed where there are people named Kerr, that was my mother's
Yeah.
family. And we were able to buy it from my mother and three sisters when I was about 16, 17. We paid $4,250 for 100 acres.
Imagine, $4,250.
And believe me, it was hard to pay for.
Yes?
Well, it would be just like $1 million today.
Yeah,
You know, it was a very large sum of money.
it was. I had made some money in wartime feeding pigs, and my mother left her share in, and we bought with a mortgage from a fellow by the name of Joe Knight. And we come up with about $2,300 and the mortgage for the rest of it. There were men that had some money at that time and they took up mortgages like that. Paid 5% on it.
Really?
That's a fair bit.
In those days, that's a lot of money.
My golly, interest went up to 18% at one time.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And they put some farmers out of business at 18%. But I married a wonderful girl, and she was a good business person, and we kind of weathered the high interest rate fairly well.
I lived at Orange Corners with my mom and dad. They dairy farm. Dad bought his first tractor, was a Minneapolis Moline, and back then there was they were hard to get. He tried to get a massive Harris and a case, and all of them, there was none. So with the war on, so the tractor, this dealer come around. I shouldn't say dealer. He was a representative, and so he wanted to sell Dad and my grandpa a tractor. So they didn't know him. They had no idea who he was, but they paid him cash. They paid him cash, and the only way that they kind of knew him was through Harry Jackson.
Oh, all right.
But they paid this guy this cash. They had to go to Waterloo to get the tractor. It was taken off a flatbed from the States, came from the States, and they went to load it on Russell Fife's truck, and they couldn't change gears. It wouldn't change gears. So they had to take another one off the flatbed on the train and grease it and do whatever they had to do with it. And then it changed gears, and they put it on Russell's truck, brought it home.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much they paid for it?
No. But they paid cash, like
Yeah,
to somebody, to a stranger, like
yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Busted everybody back then.
Well, see, there again, that's where Harry Jackson would come in, because people respected his judgment. He was a fairly well-educated man for his time, wasn't he,
Well, he
Ken?
had a Minneapolis tractor,
He did, eh?
yes.
So he probably advised your dad well, yeah.
Bill worked for Boyd for that summer. And then in August, we bought the farm where we are now.
The farm was good to us, but it were good years when you could get ahead if you worked and tried.
But we paid cash for things in those days.
Oh, yes.
When I bought my first new tractor, a 22 Massey, and I had an old Avery tractor that was just a piece of junk in a way, and I had to get a new one somehow or another, and I put in a bunch of wheat, and I got $1,000 for this wheat. It was very good. Tractor cost $1,500, and I traded the old one, and there was $1,100 difference, and I borrowed $100 from my dad to buy the first tractor. And I was so proud of that tractor that I polished it every morning.
Yeah.
I tried so hard to get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
it was better than putting a harness on the horse, wasn't it?
well, yes, we had 5 horses, and we lost a team of horses, and through a fluky thing. And trying, like you said, trying to get a tractor
It was terrible.
it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I had one ordered for a fellow by the name of Stuart Hall, that won the Massey dealership in Peterborough. But I found out afterwards that there was some money going onto the table, like you paid exactly what the price was, but for $50 onto the table, you got moved up the list.
Ooh, wow.
I never heard that one. That was,
And they were into that, especially his son.
Oh,
oh yeah.
not very nice.
Was my father was squeaky honest. It was a thing you just didn't do. And but I found it out, and I never did get the tractor from him. I bought it in Lindsay when I bought a used one, and then got by for a couple of years, and then I got a new one. But I bought it in Lindsay.
I enjoyed the farming. I farmed 10 years with Dad.
Now this tractor that Dad bought, when they brought it home on the 11th of July. He went to the parade on the 12th.
The glorious 12.
Glorious 12th.
Exactly.
And he run over his brother on the 13th with the tractor. He survived.
Which brother was that?
Harold. He was standing on, Harold was standing on the back of the tractor, was over at my Uncle Ern's. They're kind of going up a grade. And he had a fork in his hand. And just standing on, now the seat did turn. And it kind of went into a dip. And it flung him over because he wasn't concentrating. He had a hand on the seat and on this fork, and it flung him up onto the tire because they weren't totally covered, like a fender on the tire. Flung him up, and of course, new tractor, Dad puts on the brakes and it stops and it's on top.
Oh, yeah.
The back wheel was on top.
He'd have been better to let it go, yeah.
So he just let off on the brakes and rolled off him.
So was he injured for long? Was he laid up for long?
For a while,
Yeah.
you know.
There wasn't
They
much to him
thought
anyway.
they thought they was dead, like, you know,
Yeah.
because he
There
was
was
right
a
under the
time
tire.
when some of the tractors like Kay's, John Deere in Minneapolis, they used hand clutches,
Yeah, it was hand clutch. Yeah,
and that wasn't a good thing, because we were used to cars
yeah, with a
with
Foot
a
clutch.
clutch.
yeah.
And some people got into trouble with those. In fact, I traded the first case I had because I had a couple of kids, and they used to run out to meet me in the yard when I'd come up at noon, and I was always afraid. At that time, I had two tractors, one with a foot clutch and one with a hand, and I got kind of paranoid that I'd forget that clutch.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can see it.
And
And with him, like one day with this new tractor,
Yeah.
and the brakes were, well, you know what they'd be like, brand new, and it just stalled, and it stalled into the bargain, like it stalled, and so he just realized enough to let his foot off the brake and let it roll, and it rolled off him.
I can imagine
But-
your dad would be pretty sick
Oh.
about that, yeah.
Terrible.
Then I bought a farm from a neighbor, and that was done just with there was no paperwork, there was no nothing. We agreed on the price, and he came up on the Saturday, and I was away at a wedding. He had to know by Monday because he had a buyer that wanted to buy the farm. We went to talk to him. I said, well, yes, I'm interested. I don't have any money. I gotta be sure I can get money. So on the Monday, the real estate agent come back and offered him $10,000 more. And he turned it down. He turned it down. Back then, that was a lot of money. So I got hold of junior farmers, and they came down and looked and said, "You've got your money." That was $35,000 for 250 acres.
I remember the 18% days
Yeah.
Yes.
when we had 3 kids in college, and 18%, it was a tough number of years.
You had to be careful, really careful.
Oh,
Really
very-
careful, yeah.
Very careful. And, I mean, you still had the same expenses to pay, and, you know, you had to really think, do I need this, or do I want it?
Yeah,
You know?
That's right.
If that 18% was to come back now,
Oh, gosh.
it would be total chaos.
Well, when we came here, they had trains, but then all of a sudden, I don't know what year they tore them up, tracks.
89, I think.
Anyway, they used to pile them in our pasture field, and sort them out. But we miss them.
It goes back even further to a steam engine.
Oh, Charlie had a steam engine too?
Oh, yes.
Well, I do remember a guy named Steincross thrashed us out one year, and he had a steam engine, because I was hauling the wood to keep it going.
Yeah.
On the highway, you had to be careful. They didn't
Oh
want to
gosh,
hit you.
yeah. Well, we had 2 crossings, one going across and one going down the quarter line.
Yeah.
First, the milk went by train. Then Russell had at least 2 trucks. Then eventually it became bulk milk, and everybody had coolers at home. The milk was held in large cans and cooled with running water for a number of years. And but before that, they took these cans to Carmagner Station and shipped it to Toronto.
When we were sending milk by cans when I was with my dad, and in the wintertime, the roads quite often got blocked, that the truck couldn't get through. So we would load the cans on the sleigh and go through the different farmers' fields to get to back where Russell Fife would take the milk to Peterborough at that time. Before I bought the farm, the man used to send it to Toronto by rail, or like by train. But ours went to Peterborough, like took over the farm. It was bulk milk then, and it still went to Peterborough, and Russell picked it up too. But it was very good, just the winter and trying to maneuver through these fields was quite something.
Carmagner Station was sort of valuable to our family.
Railway, yeah.
Yes, CN Railway. My first year in high school went to Omimi by train. Then the next year they had school buses on the highway, so we walked out to the highway.
One story, a story I recall about going to Orange Corners, an episode in the schoolyard. Olive Faulkner come in crying to the teacher, "Mr. Lowe's, Arthur Gardle hit me with his fist." And Lowe's says to Arthur, "Did you strike Olive with your fist?" "Yes, I did." Now, holy Moses, Arthur just moved in from the Timmins. "You don't do things like that here, Arthur. Lie or something. You don't admit to that. Whatever would make you strike a girl with your fist?" Arthur, "Well," he says, "she called me every dirty name she could think of. That didn't bother me." including the dirty Dogan, whatever that means. That didn't bother me. He says, but then she slapped my face, so I slugged her one. He says, is that true, Olive? Yes, because she didn't dare to lie to the son of a gun. And, well, Olive, you kind of deserve that. But Arthur, don't let me ever hear tell you hitting a girl with your fist again. You understand? Well, he says, she better not slap my face again either.
Went to school in Bethel, SS North 13, where you walk to school, and a church in Bethel Church, which is still open. In fact, there's a supper tonight that the ladies put on, but it's getting increasingly hard for them to do it because everybody's getting older and it's harder. The work is getting harder, and it's more costly to keep a church open now. I hear what the expenses are, but I have good memories of Bethel Church and good memories of Bethel School. Practically my whole public school life to one teacher, and she married a farmer in the area and raised her family at the same time as mine.
I never started school until I was 7, which is quite different to now. We had to walk to school. I didn't have really all that far to go, but a lot of the children had a lot further than I did. We had quite a change of teachers when I was going. They didn't seem to stay long. I don't know whether we drove them away or what, but they were young. Some of them were right from normal school, and 2 or 3 of them, 2 of them I know of, they were 18 when they were taught at Orange Corners.
Now, what 18-year-old would you want teaching your kids today?
Well, it was kind of embarrassing. I taught school one year, and I remember this George Martin, who was a good math student. Poor Linda Massey, she couldn't learn math. I couldn't teach her math. I'd say, George, can you help her with that? He could teach her. He was a better teacher than I was.
It was good. I enjoyed it. When I went to high school, I went to PCVS in Peterborough. We had to go out to number 7 highway to catch the bus, which my mom and my uncle and neighbor took turns taking us out. They take a week about taking us out to the bus. We go to Peterborough, get back on the bus, come back out to number 7 highway, which wasn't any fun in the winter.
Dad
Was Stan McCall.
Stan McCall, and he was quite a number of years until the lodge closed. They built a new lodge. There was the older lodge was kind of up on posts at the corner of what is now Meadowview, and the Jacksons they let their sheep out on the roadway to graze, and the sheep would go in at night under the lodge, and then they go out in the morning again and do the feeding along the roadway, and like in the ditches and that, and then they go back in again, and they wouldn't have anything to do with them for weeks. Like they just went in, went on, and that was it.
The grass on the side of the road was free grazing, eh?
Yeah, free grazing. They
People
never seemed to get into trouble. Like
pastured the
Well, there
cows
wasn't cars.
sometimes on the.
no,
Yeah.
but and everybody had a fence, but and then when they built the new hall, their new lodge, that was quite a going concern there when that was done, and
But it was really the heart of,
Yeah.
like, everybody went to the dance and you took your kids with you and
Yeah,
you
once
brought
they-
the lunch and you
once
took
they-
your kids and the whole family.
Had some great times.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
We used to go to all the socials around and the dances and Orange Corners.
Best hardwood floor. Oh, it
Oh,
was a
it was-
beautiful floor to dance on.
Pardon?
The hardwood floor at the hall, you know, it was just waxed just right.
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
it was good.
I was the guy that waxed.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Well, that's why you do such a good job of vacuuming at home.
Yeah, on my hands and knees. That was, and that's quite an area for to do on your hands and knees.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be doing it today, but
But it was a hard goal to make, you know, have these different dinners. It was a lot of hard work for the women
But
and for the men.
imagine that there and no bathrooms, like no
Yes.
washrooms at all.
Yeah.
Eh? There wasn't.
Yeah. And just
Well-
a dirt floor, only made
Dirt
with
floor.
sawdust to keep the dust down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah,
can remember
yeah.
Rita McCarroll, remember Rita McCarroll, she's awful heavy, she must have weighed near 300 pounds,
Yeah,
sitting on her chair. And she went to get up, the rungs were right down to the cross member. She went to get up, and she could, she jerked the chair about 4 times before she got out of the dirt.
Got it out of the dirt, yeah, yeah. Because it sawdust and then the dirt, you know, yeah, oh yeah.
well, I've been, my wife and I have been to dinners
Yeah,
at the,
in the shed,
yeah,
yeah.
when we, I guess, was maybe the first years that we were married.
Well, it didn't really seem to matter whether you were part of the United Church or the Anglican Church or Presbyterian, whatever denomination. Everybody kind of supported each other's organization.
Because Lois McCall different times went back to Bethel to play the piano.
Oh, yeah.
That's how the neighbors got to know each other. Yeah.
Some
Trying.
bad
They had some bad dudes.
dudes from Peterborough come out just
Yeah,
to,
yeah, and all they came for wasn't to dance, it was cause trouble.
cause
Yeah.
trouble, yeah.
And
I remember that.
they had to have the police a few times, and they had to do some throwing out, which wasn't easy because these guys were,
Well, they had alcohol, you know.
yeah, and these were tough. Like they weren't wimps
No.
that they were trying to get rid of out of there, and they were there to cause trouble.
Fowler's Corners was a kind of a critical hamlet to the community. They had Ross Smith's General Store. He would package. A wife could make up a list, and he could package it together, and the husband could pick the entire thing up and take it home. He also had a freezer in behind, and farmers would kill their own beef and put it in the freezer there for storage and get it out as needed. He also had a grinding mill in behind where you could grind your grain into chop for pigs and whatnot. Aside from Ross Smith's General Store, there was old Robert Nurse had a blacksmith shop that had a little extension on the roof with a big shaft through it, and one Hart Power engine drove the entire shaft, and he could just put a belt on each tool, whether it be a drill or whatever he needed to run, was all run from the one engine. But also he was very good at welding with the forge. One time my dad sent me there with a Moore knife that he had broken, and he just sheared the sections off the knife to have the main part hammered together, and he'd tell me to get more heat, he'd tell me, faster, faster, sonny, faster. Oh, slow down now. He'd just get the heat of the metal perfect and hammer it together. It was a good weld, and he was very good at his trade. I think he was an old Scotsman, if I mind right. But his son Ken Nurse had a garage to service cars and sell gas.
Ken,
For old
were you related to Charlie Mills, like the
He
Douglas
was
Thrasher?
my uncle,
Was he?
my mother's brother,
Okay.
Well, I
Oh.
never knew that. He was your mom's brother.
yes.
Well, he did
So
the-
you'd be related to Bailey's too then?
Oh,
Big
yeah,
Bailey's wife.
she was mother's sister.
I never knew that.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
holy moly. I
Olive,
never
Olive
knew-
was mother's sister,
Oh.
I never knew that.
And what was your mom's name?
Florence.
Florence.
Well, wasn't it Mr. Mills that did the
Thrashing.
the thrashing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Custom Thrasher.
Yeah, he did.
Dairies. There was Silverwood, Sunshine, and Moncrief's, and I think there was another dairy, but
Campbell's.
Campbell's Dairy, yes. And eventually they all closed but Silverwood's. Then eventually it became bulk milk, and truckers were required to take training to be qualified to test the milk before they picked it up. The qualifying training was from Guelph Agricultural College.
I remember helping the ladies put a supper on more than once at the hall. And they had running water, but you couldn't drink it, so you had to bring all the water for drinking and for any kind of cooking you were
In a
doing.
milk can, you know.
In milk cans. And the kitchen, if you could call it that, it was very, very primitive. And you had to clean it up first because like, there was so much mouse poop in it everywhere. All the dishes and the cupboards and everything, you know, it just was an old building and was a nice haven.
Well, did they have a well there? Earl?
Yes,
They had a well,
They had
yeah.
a well.
But it wasn't good, cause I right across the road at the school, I was good drinking water, the
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
at the school.
But it wasn't
No,
at the
this
hall.
wasn't
And it was
proper.
just an outdoor plumbing.
At-
Until the Lions Club took it over.
Like it was outdoor, like when all the dances and that were on there. You had to go
Well,
outside.
Outhouse, yeah.
It was great in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I remember it, like at the church at the corner at St. John's, they didn't have a washroom there either. And we always had to leave our back door open in case anybody during the service had to take a trip down there real quick and come back. It was a good excuse for the kids to get out for a few minutes, I guess.
Lakeville Church used to have their spring tea there too, at
Right,
that hall.
yeah.
I remember taking the milk cans of water and, yeah.
And the Lions Club rented out, like
Yes.
now, to people for birthday parties and whatever.
The Lions Club still own it to this day?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They've done a nice job inside,
Mm.
you know, modernizing it and, but it was a real center of the community.
Religion was much more prominent back then.
Yes, too. yes.
Today, the churches are closing and, well,
It's a detriment to our country, really.
in a way, I think, but sometimes you're like Dad would say, well, you know, well, that's true, it says that right in the Bible. Well, also says that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. That's not very logical, is it? If he took 3 to bed every night, he'd take him a year to get around to them. Like, you had to take some of that with a grain of salt, but
Yeah, it was a good life. Better than today. I can say that. Things are too much of a rush today. Everybody's in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, people to even go for a coffee today, they don't even have change on them. You know, they use their debit card for $1, and I'm just thinking, like, who doesn't have a buck in their pocket?
I can remember when eggs were 12 cents a dozen,
12 cents for
a penny apiece.
yeah.
We raised 3 children, had a happy life, and now the boys have taken over, and the Callan name is well known in the district, I think. So,
I have 2 sons and a daughter. I've worked for 40-some years with my 2 sons. They run it now. That's about my life story. I still own the farm, but my sons run the business. I sold my interest in the business part of it for a pension a couple of years ago.
So we farmed there until 2016. and we sold the farm at an auction sale. We had the machinery sale. We'd sold our milking herd in 1999 to a Mennonite family. They loaded the cattle on 2 tractor trailers and they were gone. Then we moved from there into Peterborough and bought a house, and that's where we live now on 2548 Denora.
Anyway, what else do I want?
So I think everything else that I know about has been discussed.
But anyway, that's it.
Is that enough?